you talk a lot about consciousness. What's your thoughts on a universal consciousness and tapping into that?
Well, would that be the material consciousness you were speaking of, or would it be the third stage of consciousness you were speaking of?
Yeah, third stage, super consciousness.
Super consciousness.
But what are your thoughts on it? Like, you as a person, like, what are your actual opinion? What's your opinion on it? On a universal consciousness being out there?
Well, it makes intuitive sense to me. So remember, all these things are a model, right?
Yeah.
So a model a model is just a way of us trying to get our head around these things, right? So so the first thing that occurred to me when we say, what are my thoughts on superconsciousness? The answer being my thoughts and your thoughts and the thoughts of everyone, past, present, and future, and every being and every planet and every star and every moon. All the thoughts of those things. Remember, stars and planets are conscious too, but at a slightly different level from us.
Yeah.
From us, we just got self-aware consciousness, which is a particular brand of consciousness, if you like, or a flavor of consciousness. Is that those thoughts are super consciousness, and super consciousness is now aware of itself by the fact that we're self-aware. So that's my thoughts on it from a semantic philosophical perspective. And my thoughts, does it exist? Well, you can't really measure it, but imagine if you imagine that it exists. So just imagine that superconsciousness exists.
Yeah.
Just imagine what you might be able to do as a result of it. Then just imagine if I could launch 2 £1 million businesses as a result of tapping into the superconsciousness and having great ideas. So that's bringing the concept of it into the material world. So when I go into businesses, I work a lot with creative agencies and stuff like that. So, well, your next idea is just one light bulb moment or one aha moment or one eureka moment away. And the way to have it is not sort of sit at your desk working really hard. It's actually go for a walk, use breathing techniques, do a bit of yoga, this sort of stuff. So if you know that it's a possibility, so long as knowing it's a possibility generates a real world outcome, that's good enough in my book.
Absolutely amazing, and I can imagine some people that are listening right now, their minds have just
I think
blown a little bit.
My head's just exploded a little bit there, Tom.
Yeah,
but the point of the meditation I do it very safely and in a very contained way, so you don't end up with a mind fuckness state.
Yeah, the mind fuckness, exactly. No, it's absolutely amazing, and I understand the fact that we're even thinking like this just shows how far we've come as a civilization.
Yeah, but the ancients, this stuff has been known for tens of thousands of years.
Yeah,
and it must have got lost somewhere along the way.
It did, mainly, and I don't want to make too big a point of all this, but mainly to do with the large world religions. They've suppressed a lot of this stuff. But I used to be quite angry about that, but I've now realised, as in my later years, that it's actually kept us safe in a way. So, in the wrong hands, some of this knowledge could be used for nefarious purposes. So it's really good that certain rogue presidents don't know about this stuff.
Yeah, hopefully maybe in a future podcast we can go a bit deeper in these type of subjects as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I've studied esoteric wisdom for a good 15 years now, so I've got a lot of stuff I could share safely with you. And what I've done in my books is I've taken stuff which is esoteric. I've changed one letter in the word esoteric as exoteric, and that means known and understood. And my mission really has been to take the esoteric stuff and make it safe and accessible to a new audience. Yeah. But one way you have to do that is to do it in a kind of Trojan horse. So, my book on Lightbulb Moments didn't say, here's a guide on how to tap into superconsciousness. It said, here's how you tap into lightbulb moments. And I did this book called, I've written about the major arcana of the tarot and the minor arcana of the tarot, but I've not used the word tarot in the title because that'll put people off that think that the tarot is a fortune-telling deck. But actually, the tarot is a model of human consciousness. Yeah. It describes us as these multidimensional spirits having a three-dimensional experience.
Wow.
And how do you feel about mainstream media? Do you feel like they could be doing more about helping people understand consciousness a lot better?
Well, I've always wanted to do something which would be quite fun. I'd love to do a midnight meditation. So at midnight the television goes off and we do this sort of 10-minute meditation. Or in the morning, instead of starting with the bad news that's hit the planet, let's start with a morning meditation. So we embrace this stuff. It'd be good. So I think that there are certain people doing some good things. In the same way, media the traditional media channels are now switching to your YouTubes and everything else anyway.
Yeah.
So I think you'll find all you need is out there. I've got loads of my meditations on there. I've got a really good one I must share with you. It's called an Apple Watch.
Right.
And I launched it. I had a dog walk on the day that the Apple Watch came out, and this idea that why, instead of having an Apple Watch, why don't I do a meditation where people are watching an apple? So it's a free Apple Watch, and you just stare at.
That's a brilliant concept. That's a brilliant concept. So simple but so effective.
It's amazing. And I mean, 16 books later, and you've done so much. What is driving you now to keep wanting to create? Basically, like you're creating a lot of stuff for people out there. What's motivating you to do that?
Oh well, 16 books ago, I started writing another book which I haven't published yet. And so my 17th book, which is the slowest book I've ever written, is called Soul Wave, A Future History of the Earth. And I've channeled, I've written it as science fiction stroke. I've even found it 16 books later, it's even got a genre now. It's called post-dystopian cyberpunk.
Wow.
Sounds like something down my
So cyberpunk is a bit Mad Maxy when the world's all gone to pot. And post-dystopian is when we got our act back together again. And in this book, it's a future history of the Earth. And what I'm doing with it, which I've never done before, what I like doing with every book is doing something different I've never done before.
Yeah.
So it worked for Charles Dickens. So I'm actually serializing it at the moment on through a website called Patreon. You ever come across Patreon?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, and so for $1 a month, you can actually be the first people on the planet to read this book. And if you got probably if you've got grandchildren or you think of having grandchildren, it might be worth reading it because it talks about how all life on Earth will be not existing in less than 100 years.
Yeah, it's 100 years, isn't it? When I read up on it, I'm going to be honest, it scared me a little bit.
Well, no, because it's actually it's a book of hope. It's a book of it's actually a love story as well. And this happens all the time. So the mass extinction events happen all the time. This is, if it's true, and I'm not saying it's true because it is a work of fiction, but there's lots of other stuff in there that I couldn't put in any non-fiction book because it's just too weird and wacky. So I hope that it's a good read. I hope it gets people to look up at the cosmos and be amazed at this cosmos that we live in and that's given us this ability to think and to become self-aware. So that's the main purpose of the book. But also it's all about how things have to die so things can live. So we wouldn't exist right now if 2 or 3 generations of stars hadn't died. We wouldn't be around, and it's actually the thing that takes us out in this fictional story is the death of a star too close to the Earth. I don't mind saying that because I've telegraphed it in the front of the very first book. But the book is mainly to say these extinction events do happen. They've happened in the past. They will happen in the future. If one is coming our way, actually, for the first time, possibly in all the ages, we have got the smarts to do something about it. But it's not a scare story. It's not designed to scare people. It's actually to celebrate life and the fact that we've got this, and we live in this cosmos, and we can marvel at it.